Says it could not go live.
Oh no.
Looks like we are live. At the bottom it says that we are live.
Oh great.
Let's ask people, can you hear us in the sidebar?
Can you see us? Can you hear us? Give us thumbs up or emoji or something, then we know that we're live.
Cloudcast is telling me we are not live. We are live. Thanks.
We are live.
Hey, technical gods not being with us this morning. Here we are. Welcome everybody. And a wonderful, engaging conversation is what we're hoping to have. No fighting. So I'm American. We've had plenty of that. I've had my fill. So about raising and awareness for both to each other. So today, welcome to the Working Lunch Show. We are talking about which is more difficult, in-house or agency recruiting. We are expecting many, many opinions in the bar here. So let us know what you're having for lunch. Dov, have you had lunch?
My lunch is actually a smoothie. And at the same time, it's my breakfast. So yeah, it doesn't look really good, but I think it's closer to a healthy option. So that's me.
Great.
All right.
Leigh, what about you? What are you having for lunch?
Coffee and chocolate. That's how I roll.
I have my teas in here as well.
Sometimes do what you're doing though, like the whole smoothie thing. I'll try and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
Awesome.
Well, today we have some wonderful guests, and this entire conversation was carried over. Hung Lee had his brain food. Isn't that where this started, this conversation? And Leigh comment that she was looking to transition, and it started a bit of a conversation. And I said, let's pick this up on the Working Lunch Show. So two beautiful volunteers decided to join me today. And I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourselves. So first from the agency side, let's meet Leigh. Leigh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Debbie. So I'm Leigh Carrick-Moore. I've got an agency called eSearch, which has been going 22 years now. So we place mostly developers. It's a tech recruitment agency, so we place mostly developers in Silicon Roundabout, which is just down the road from where I am now. And yes, I've been doing that a very, very long time. I worked in the agency field for about 2 years before I started on my own. And then I have another company called Hello Perks, which is employee benefits for startups and scale-ups in similar locale. So yeah, and I've, like you say, recently been thinking, I had a brain injury, hence my crazy yellow glasses. Which I'm recovering from now, but I thought about moving across to internal just because it's kind of a life change, and I just wanted to, we'll get into it I'm sure later, but have more influence over process and do bigger picture stuff because that's what I really love. So, well, apart from placing people. So yeah, that's me. And that's obviously why we started this really great debate conversation. Hopefully it's conversation more than a debate, we'll see.
It should be, that's the thing, it should be a conversation because it's not about, you know, we might have different opinions and that's the beauty of it. And we have quite a lot of people following us who I'm pretty sure will chip in and ask questions, and I hope they do. So, yeah.
All right. And Dov, you've got kind of a unique perspective that you bring because both sides, but today,
yeah, so I think my journey was a bit random because I started in-house when I was agency / consulting, focusing on rec to rec and helping agency recruiters move in-house, and then I shifted back into in-house, and then I was kind of supporting consultancy again. So I'm kind of jumping in between both of worlds, and at the same time being a career coach on the side and running music blog and all the other things. So I wear many hats at the same time, and yeah, I'm thrilled to do this because when I was with consultancy since the end of 2016, I was helping a lot of agency recruiters, explaining them about the market and how to make that challenging move in-house, which not many are able to do. So looking into CVs, advising them, giving advices on RPO companies and so on and so on. So that's why my comment was, coming from my experience that I had with the company back then. And actually, I'm really curious, Leigh, how was your how's your search so far? Like, if you were thinking of moving in-house, how's that process for you been?
Sorry, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, I applied for one job, didn't understand why they didn't chew my arm off. Hence the post on Hung's brain food group on Facebook. I actually emailed him, and he was lovely, and he's like, just put it as a chat on Facebook, and then that's where this debate started. And what was really helpful, I've learned a lot actually from that group and from that post, because what I realized is that when you're working as an agency, and maybe people don't realize it's my agency, so that it's sort of a bit more challenging because there's no basic salary and stuff, and you kind of live and die on your performance. There's an awful lot of assumptions that were made, and then it made me sort of readdress my CV and understand how people might be sort of perceiving me, making certain false assumptions about how about what you get involved in an agency that maybe they assume you wouldn't have any experience in internally. So, for example, something that came up a lot was, yeah, but internal have to multitask, and I'm thinking, try like sort of hiring for 30 roles across 7 different clients, all different tech stacks, contract, permanent, you know. And and like, oh, but you can pick and choose your roles. Well, I never pick and choose my roles. I mean, I pick and choose my clients, but then when you've got a client, if I didn't work every role that was thrown at me, I would get kicked off the PSL. So that was really helpful to understand the assumptions that are made about agency recruitment, and that I've learned a lot from that. And since then, I'm involved in other things at the moment, and I haven't actually sort of resumed my search because I'm still sort of getting better from this head injury that I had. So I will resume that, and it'll be really interesting to see how it goes once I've approached the market with my new sort of CV that kind of really sort of fills those holes in terms of trying to make people understand that I have got experience in all these other areas, like wider teams, and it's not just about bums on seats, you know, it's about the cohesion of the team and getting involved in the whole thing. So yeah, so that's sorry.
Well, that's the thing. I really hope that search goes well, because it's a very challenging move, and you know, even looking back, like 4 or 5 years ago, when we were trying to help people like you find that first, you know, step into in-house, it's about finding the right brand who would believe in your skills and experience, because the first 6 months is all you need to actually get that in-house experience, like even if it's through RPO, but then all the other steps will be so much easier. But it's just about finding that right first entry into in-house. I think that from what you mentioned, the challenge is that there's a certain stigma about agencies, that all agencies are crap, and that all they want is to fill in roles, and there's no quality, and I agree that the big percentage of that is like that. I had mixed feelings about agencies myself. I was fortunate enough when I was looking for my first job in London, and I'm really thrilled to see that my first manager in the UK, when I was working for Western Union, is actually joining us today. She's a TA. She was a senior manager / director for our TA function. And now she was working in her own consultancy as well with different clients. So I would love to hear her opinion about certain things as well, just like everyone else's. But you know, I believe that when it comes to agencies, what is really important that people who want to use their services as candidates to find jobs, I'm not talking about the client side, but as a candidate, you really need to identify the agency that has the certain niche and that has the talent, that they're looking for exactly the talent that they can help you the most. Me coming to an agency that is looking for tech talent will not help me. But if I focus on HR, recruitment, or sourcers, that would be a very different, more direct approach as well. And they would have the knowledge and expertise needed to help me find my job faster. Some of the challenges that I faced when I was dealing with agencies, there are a lot of different qualities that agencies maybe different approach in how agencies work. I had some situations when I would get a phone call from, when I was actively looking for a job, from the agency saying, hey, we have this recruiter role, this is the client, are you ready to have an interview in 30 minutes? And I said, I'm just leaving the swimming pool or something, I'm going into, supermarket, I can't have the interview right now. And they would say, well, we already scheduled an interview, so the manager is going to call you in 30 minutes, and I'm on the street and the noise and everything. And the first thing that that hiring manager asked me, oh, so I heard that you are interested in the job and you want to take, like, so what do you know about it? It's like, I don't know nothing.
You don't even know who this client is.
Right? I don't even know who you are and what you're looking for, because I'm a sourcer. I don't want to be a recruiter. I don't want to be managing 360. And that's exactly what the role is about. But on the other hand, there are moments when that's how I ended up working for my first consultancy in London, because I loved their approach and how tailored it was to me as a candidate when they were pitching me to different clients. And the client said that you should work for the agency, and they gave the same feedback to the company. And then they were expanding the team, and they said, hey, we're looking for a sourcer, would you consider joining us? And I didn't even think that would somehow damage my career going from in-house to agency, because I saw the quality, how they were dealing with me, and that escalated into even in a more incredible experience while I was there. So even though I'm representing in-house, I think that maybe even the question that we're raising today about what is harder is not necessarily as important. I would maybe rephrase it into, you have different people who might be focusing on different, like someone is focusing on fast sale, money, bonus. That would be more of an agency side. And someone, for example, is more about long-term and building relationships and finding for someone, in the long term and really focusing on one brand, and that's still, for me, more in-house.
I disagree. Just because, you see, this is the kind of stuff that came up in the group, the Facebook group, is that, just going back to what you were saying about agencies, 90% or whatever are really, really terrible or crap, as you said. I totally agree with that. And I get that. So when I have a new client, I understand that they're going to think I'm crap and that I really have to prove myself. And I'm in the gutter until I hire, 5 people with maximum 2 CVs. Say 10 CVs, hire 5 people, make sure that they don't have to rifle through loads of unnecessary. I was speaking to someone yesterday and they got 27 CVs from an agency for one role. That should never ever happen. That's our job. We're meant to present the maybe 2 people, or if the client wants
best
3.
Of the best. Yeah.
But the point is that when you said, agency is just about, it's about commission and sales, and we're more about the long-term relationship. I have long-term relationships with all my, and this again, it goes back to assumptions, and there's assumptions on both sides. And I think to go backtracking a bit, there's this sort of internal versus agency rivalry, which I wish we'd just get rid of. What I love that Debbie's doing this, because basically we need to be having this conversation because we can be learning from each other. And I think that on the agency side, they just think, oh, internal people are the people that can't hack agencies. They don't want a cold call. They want the safety of a basic salary. It's a much more comfortable role. And then conversely, on the internal side, it's like all agents are crap, which I agree, most 90% of them are. But then a lot of internal people aren't that great either. There was someone on Hung's Brain Food group on Facebook the other day that had interviewed 30 people with internal experience and still can't find anyone. So it goes both ways. But I just think, let's not do assumptions, because the thing is, and I know that, and again, we both recognise that there's bad practices on both sides. I think,
absolutely,
and especially in the agency world, I totally get that. But I think that to assume that all agencies don't do long-term relationships. I got the other day, but we have to talk. We have to be have the personality to be able to establish relationships with CTOs. You just do on a spec. You don't even talk to them. And it's like, I would never even have a client that made me do that, because my relationship with the hiring manager is everything. And how can I understand like the team dynamic, the culture fit, You know, and there's in a spec, just most specs are written really badly, and I end up rewriting them anyway with the client's permission, of course. But yeah, I mean, I do think this whole question came about because I said, why aren't these people chewing my arm off? So my answer to that, why I think internal is easier, and again, I'm totally open to, I'm learning, being corrected on this, but internally, there's an instant credibility that's given. I've begged clients on occasion for a, you know, an @runpath or you know, TransferWise email address, because then you get instant credibility. And there's candidates, if I'm headhunting a developer and they get headhunted 10 times a week, or they did back in the day anyway, and they've never heard of you, you know, there's an instant suspicion. And again, it goes back to the 90% thing, rightly so. So it's clients and candidates that experience bad practices in recruitment. And if you get an instant credibility in terms of being internal, and you also get influence over culture, you get influence over process. And what I was saying earlier about sort of being in the gutter till you prove yourself, if I have a new client and I suddenly say, look, your process is crap, I can't really get away with that until I've really proven myself. I can see Debbie this sort of chimes with her. So, you know, as an agency, so I have to initially like really prove myself on delivery. And some of that is really hard when the process is broken and you have no influence over it. And similarly with fit, I mean, you've got to get it right first time, otherwise, again, you get knocked off the PSL. So sometimes like it's sort of alchemy to make that happen. And then you only get the influence once you've proven yourself. And even then, it's not your job to do that, really. That's not really why they're hiring you. Or using your agency. So therefore, you kind of, sometimes there are conflicts with HR, not conflicts, but, you know, it's like, well, that's our job. But the point is the process is broken. So it takes a lot of diplomacy and skill to kind of navigate all of that.
Yeah, and you know, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, we've got a lot of activity and comments. Hey, I know up at like 5 in the morning to be here.
Oh, wow.
And he was actually on the chat on Facebook.
That's amazing.
I said, I would really love someone who's workable. And
yeah.
But I said, Gary, would you wake up and some feedback in the chat, because that's unique. But Erica says, you know, look, there's a lack of appreciation and understanding on both sides, which I think is absolutely true. False, Gary, yes. And I mean, Kim is also saying, look, some people like both, experience with both, and I think that is perfect. I'm internal. I know what my recruiters need. I know what the vendors need. You know, and having been on that end, I'm making sure that they've got the tools to do their very best job, instead of just, here's the rec.
Yeah.
You know, in this bracket, well, there's a chance you might not be on this list next year. You know, I got fixated on one word you used, Dov, and that is quality. And I think that the biggest piece of this is quality is different. On the internal side, maybe that's metrics.
Well, you know, let's say I can give an example, right? So from my experience, where when I was agency, I knew that our agreement with the companies that we were supporting, and currently, it might be similar for you. When you place a candidate, when you find a placement, you have typically 6 months if they resign, that you need to replace them, and so on, right? Now, when it comes to the internal side of things, what we don't even consider, that, for example, when you're part of the big team, let's say I've been member of teams of recruitment where you have 6, 7, 8, or even more recruiters managing a lot of recs, and there's a lot of internal movement. So you would be filling one rec, but you would open another rec that you would need to fill. So backfilling is, you know, or you might be taking one person from another department, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of tricky situations internally when it comes to those things. Now, when it comes to the quality in agency, I do believe that as Leigh said as well, and we both agree that, we're not generalizing that all of the agencies are crap or all in-house teams are good. We're talking about overall, everyone will have different experiences. And I do believe that there are good recruiters in both sides. What we need is, I think that what really frustrates me when I see on LinkedIn, and because of when I was working for the rec-to-rec company, a lot of connections that I have on my LinkedIn are recruiters, and a lot of them are from agency from back in the day, when I was connecting with them. What really frustrates me is when agency recruiters and managers are shouting on LinkedIn with photos of, oh, I made my first placement and this is a champagne bottle, or I rang a bell. For me, this is just so outdated, and you can throw a stone at me, but I think that it's not about shouting how many placements you made, because I never saw an internal person scream about it out publicly that, oh, I just made my first placement, because at the end of the day, this is just what you do. And at the same time, when it comes to internal, and this is a real big difference, because still agencies, of course, depending on the contracts with the clients, they can, what Leigh as well, you mentioned, you either only paid per placement, a certain percentage from the annual salary, or you work on on an hourly rate or monthly salary plus, then the company gets a bonus. There are different ways, but within in-house, you typically have salary, which is your salary. Like the best thing that you can get internally when you do your job is a bonus, annual bonus, which is maybe 13th salary, but that's it. Because every recruiter or source survey would have their own metrics, like KPIs that they need to manage, and to make sure that happens, to make sure that that's realistic. But just because you fill more roles, it doesn't mean that you're going to be getting, you're not being paid for filling those roles one by one. So it's that is a big difference. And another aspect that I've seen when we were trying to educate agency recruiters, that you would be surprised how many people that I spoke to said that the only reason why they're looking about in-house, because they were tired of doing agency, and they think that because they will not need to do business development side of things, because for some it may really not their thing. They just want to do recruitment, not the sales side of things. But they're tired of that, and they believe that in-house is easier, but that's never the motivation that will get you through the door to in-house anyway.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Thank you. So, why do you think internal is harder or not harder?
You see, I think that we're talking about two different worlds, because I believe that when it comes to working internally, there are a lot of aspects where you only work with one client, right? That you represent the company. What you said as well, it's better for you to represent one client. There's more credibility. It's easier to reach out to people, or that they know who you represent, right? In a way, that seems easier. But at the same time, you will be more. It might be more challenging internally in the business to manage all of the hiring managers, because they can, when you're agency, you're not necessarily sitting in one place, right? I've been part of teams when hiring managers would be knocking on your table. They would come to your desk and they're like, where are my candidates? That pressure from the business to deliver and to get candidates, into interviews might be even stronger than when you're agency. Because when you're agency, the client might not necessarily be pushing. You need to challenge yourself, because especially if you're competing with more, if you do not work on an exclusive deal with a client, we were working with one company that we had 7 companies looking for the same people. So we were competing with other 7 agencies. When you're internal, you need to be really creative in managing all of those things, because agency is the last resort that you would go to. So, and you might be working on 40 recs at the same time.
But the
I know a lot of recruiters who have like more than 30, 40 recs.
Yeah, well, we do that too. But the fact that agency is the last resort usually means there's actually more urgency when they come to an agency. because it's been, the hiring manager didn't want to hire this person yesterday. They wanted to hire them 3 months ago. So that pressure that you're talking about is very real in the agency world. But we still don't have, you know, the sort of instant credibility that you have with juggling other clients. Rather than having one hiring manager knocking on our desk, we've probably got like 7 at a time. So that's why I think agency is harder. But the caveat, I think, and again, it goes back to the assumptions thing. The big caveat is I'm talking about agencies like ours, where we partner with a client, we try and have as much influence over process and culture as possible. You know, it's not about this bums on seats thing, which is a phrase that gets bandied around a lot. It's the fact that we are trying to place people, establish our own credibility. So if I have a candidate that leaves after, we actually have a 3-month rebate period. But if I had a candidate left within a year, I'm so cognizant of my own reputation and the agency's reputation, I would refill that role anyway. But you don't want that to happen, is the point. So we still have to have that forward thinking and try and put people where we know they're going to be happy and their careers are nurtured and they move to the next level, and we're very much in touch with all of that. This is all sort of an add-on, really. It's not just about making the placement, it's about all of these other things. But we've got no basic salary, and again, the caveat is it's my agency, so you know, if I don't make placements, then I don't earn any money. In fact, I lose a lot of money. So it's all of these sort of wider things, which I still would say that agency is harder than internal for many reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, sorry, Debbie.
I'm going to say in the sidebar, there's a lot of chat about.
Yes.
Really, the biggest message, and Glenn, 100%. Building a partnership is really the key to this problem. The best way for this relationship to ever work is for us to actually view each other as partners instead of competitors. And I think that the mentality that's being echoed here in the sidebar, Erica touches on it, and then actually Gary too, that there's a stigma that agency is for salesy. We're like the used car salesman of the talent world. You know, we're just go in at the last minute, make some undercut it, you know, shady deal. Well, that's not it. You know, for a lot of agencies who I think that we really, look, the placement is great because the placement means ultimately making some money on the agency side. However, I can tell you, and I'm agency my whole life, I can tell you there have been many times where that I have available to present because it's not a quality hire. And I've also had to pull someone because I saw red flags, even though I knew it was on the inside of my 90-day window and I wasn't going to make a penny for it. But in sidebar conversations, there are major red flags. I don't feel like we've made a quality hire, and we need to do something about this. You know, I valued on both sides. It can really, really work well. Someone in the comments says, I think that there's a little bit of jealousy or a little bit of maybe intimidation on the agency side, you know, that, hey, if I'm internal and I've been working the hell out of this rec for 3 months and I cannot find someone, and I turn it over to an agency and they've got a quality candidate in a week.
Yeah. You know, at the same time, like, don't get me wrong, like I've seen companies that, for example, we're working with agencies and agencies were doing everything they can to find the talent. But sometimes what happens with in-house companies or your partners for the agencies, you submit the candidates and they say, oh, we already have them in our database, even though the candidate never spoke to them, and they kind of steal your candidate, they hire them and they trick you out of paying, you know, what they should be paying to the agency. I've seen that happen as well. You know, I think that it's all about, you know, what Leigh as well said, it's all about building the relationship, no matter where you are, whether are you agency or are you in-house. If company comes to an agency, that means that they really need support. And then, of course, the company will work with the agency that is right for them. Now, sometimes what happens that those contracts are awarded because of the hiring manager prioritizes one company over the other because they know someone, not necessarily the best agency to do the job. That sometimes happens as well. However, when you have more centralized kind of process, when a lot of companies need to supply the applications and then they approve them for like a year, rolling contracts or so on, then you really need to deliver quality. Otherwise, your contract would not be extended. But there's a lot of pressure on agency recruiters to deliver, and it's really it can be really tough. I can give you I want to give you a few examples from my experience when I was looking for a job and when I was applying for jobs, and in both of those cases I was applying for agency jobs. Just that might show in those two examples a different mentality, which is shocking to me. That I've experienced. So one of the companies was saying that small consultancy, around 16 people based in London, they were planning on really changing the subscription model of what agency should look like. So they were in the middle between the agency and RPO, but there was still agency kind of vibe in it. I joined as a sourcer and I said, look, I don't want to be account manager. I don't want that. I want to be sourcing. On my second week, I was given a task to look at Germany and the new market. I had 1 hour where I needed to understand the role, send 100 emails within an hour of first time looking into the job spec, into a country, into a company, into everything. And I refused to do that because I said, look, this is spam.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And I believe that if this is still that stigma about agency, that this is happening quite often. And about a year ago, I even made a post on LinkedIn saying that if you get an email, don't respond, wait until someone follows up because of all the automation and all the other things. Another situation I had actually recently when I was having an interview with a company that is consultancy, we were talking about the salary expectations, right? I said my number, what I was earning in-house before, and that number, the manager said, okay, I'm not able to pay you this. I would put you 10,000 less, and then there's going to be like a bonus because I want you to be motivated and I want you to deliver, and it's going to be pressure on you to fill in the recs, and you're going to get your bonus. I want you to get salary from bonus. Then I had exactly similar conversation for the similar experience, but in-house, and I said exactly the same number. And I was told that I'm being modest and that it is within the bracket and that I should be even asking more. For none of those, I had the right experience because I didn't necessarily hire tech people, but it just shows that with in-house, potentially they would be investing into a person, developing them in the long run, and putting money into you that you would learn and that you would stay. Whether, in my experience, in those two cases, the agency was looking for a fast return. And however, that's not necessarily the case because my first consultancy, that was the same case. They were investing into me and giving me a lot of training and so on. So, but this is just, two cases from one I had personally. I'm sure that everyone has different opinions, but I'm curious what everyone in the comments think as well.
Interesting experiences you had there. I mean, like you say, there's good and bad always, but just going back to what the comments, Gary's comment that Debbie picked up on about the rivalry thing. This is something I find really unfortunate because it is almost like there is a bit of like the more success, if you're hiring and there's an internal recruiter, I don't normally do this. I normally hire direct for the CTO or there's a dev manager or whatever. But when I have done this internal recruitment thing, there often has been, unfortunately, this rivalry, which is counterproductive because the more successful you are, say I put forward 5 CVs and they hire 4, that's because I'm very mindful of this ratio thing. We're not the kind of agency that just sends 20 CVs and says, take your picks. I don't think there's any, that's not what hiring should be about.
You shouldn't do that. That should not be allowed.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. But it's more often than not the case, unfortunately. And it's unfathomable to me. But the point is that say we're really successful and then there's an internal recruiter, there is often, it's often like the more successful you are, the less likely they are to want to continue working with you. I've had that about 4 or 5 times in the past couple of years, where there's some kind, there's you know, it feels a bit threatening, and I can kind of understand that, because it makes them look, you know, if they're meant to be hiring direct and saving the company money, it does kind of make them look bad, and it makes me feel bad because I know they feel bad. But there's no way around it if you want to get the job done, and obviously you're only there to make the placement, so it's sort of quite a counterproductive catch-22 scenario sometimes.
And I think the problem comes from higher up, because coming in to berate you every time you've just written out a recruiter commission check, or your manager wants to know in-house recruiter, why didn't you find that candidate? How come you find that candidate? Aren't we paying you X amount of dollars per year to fill these positions, and now I have to write a check to Leigh? Part of it. And I think that animosity is built from conversations. If I'm internal and motivated to promote or to prep also on Wednesday, no, my candidate will likely be better prepared. University, and make sure that you mentioned it. You know, they'll have that intimate conversation. We're going in trying to get them as prepped as we can with the information we're getting. Comment that I see here in the Glenn basically saying, why aren't we viewing each other? Why aren't we working together? You know? And Shafiq, he also echoes this. I mean, it is about, what if the internals actually said, I'm going to pick the 5 agencies that I want to work with. I'm going to let them work with my marketing team. I'm going to make sure that they have accessibility to high-res people, so that when they're out promoting us, they're promoting us. And it's making sure that the content they're going to produce or the reach outs are all echoing our voice. Oh, and by the way, I'm letting the recruiters know what voice is. And I mean, what a better experience that would be. Now, the problem is the one paying an agency. They just say, this is really about ensuring we have the best person hired.
Sorry, go on.
No worries. I just think we have a lot of technical glitches, so it's sometimes we're just imagining what you're saying, Debbie.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
But yeah, I think Debbie, what you were just saying is a really interesting point, which is that and I hadn't actually put this in my notes, but it's so true, is that there's often a disconnect. You're not working towards the same end. And I wish that there could be that true partnership with internal recruiters. And this is a slightly different question than the premise of this working lunch, which is agency or internal harder? But it's a very good point, whereby the CEO or whoever, like you say, the higher ups, it would be really helpful if they had an eye on somehow having more cohesion between the internal recruiter and agencies are a necessary evil, but they do need to be used for certain tricky hires. So why don't we embrace that and then have it as part of our strategy, rather than just having this kind of slight sort of last resort resentment stuff, because it should be part of the strategy, because it's always going to happen anyway. But there's this thing whereby it's oftentimes not, you're not on the same page, you're not working towards the same goal. So that inherently is going to create tension, which is really unfortunate.
And you know as well what you said about tension, right? So when I was in-house and doing sourcing, so basically I always treated sourcing internally as internal agency, because the concept is the same. You're working on really hard to fill roles that recruiters are focusing, and you are there. In reality, sourcers are the ones who are stealing agencies' jobs away, because they are trying to save the budgets that companies would be spending on agencies, and they would be there to build the same networks and so on. Of course, the challenge, for example, for me as a sourcer, because that's the thing, I'm not a 360 recruiter, right? I would not be managing 20, 30 recs at a time. I would not be dealing with the hiring managers in the sense of managing the process. I would be there getting information from them, dealing with them when I can, when I need to, talking to teams, but I would not be involved in managing the whole process. That's recruiters, more like a recruiter's responsibility. But basically, I believe that still the challenge is that, maybe you are, Leigh, in a different situation when you're the owner of the company, right? Then it's up to you. You know how many clients you want to bring in, how many clients you need to have, or how many roles to fill to make sure that your business is successful, financially successful, that you continue running. And if you might have 10 roles at a time, you might have 25. It's completely up to you. You make a decision. If you have a team, for example, and someone is made redundant internally, or especially especially big corporates like Fortune 500 companies, what they tend to do towards the end of the year, we're going into a hiring freeze. You've been doing a lot of trying to fill those recs, engaging with candidates, not just as sourcer, recruiters do the same. And then you understand that what's happening, that you can't do anything. You still need to manage.
But you still get paid. That's the difference. That's another big glaring difference between agencies and internal, is that, and I'm talking here in terms of contingency recruitment, which is what we do, even though we behave a bit more like a search and selection agency, but we don't charge an upfront fee, because I don't know, there's a certain part of me that feels it's a bit unethical, but maybe that's sort of changing myself. But it's contingency. So you might spend 3 months trying to hire a really tricky skill set, tricky hire, and then there's a recruitment freeze. So we've done all the work and produced a person. We don't get paid, so that's another difference, because you get paid no matter what. It's just a shame that your hard work didn't go to, didn't actually, you didn't complete the process, and that's a shame. But you still get paid. It's quite a different thing, I think.
But you see, again, when it comes to pay, I from what I've seen, that if you would compare the person who would have, let's say, senior recruiter, maybe technical recruiter, having exactly the same experience, working for agency and working in-house, potentially working in-house, they would earn less than agency, because they don't have as many bonuses that they can stack up, in the same period of time. Why do you think people work internally then? What's the motivation, do you think? I believe that if they want to be, when you work internally, I believe that people want to be part of the brand. They really want to be the ambassador. They want to step in, and they want to make the changes in the recruitment processes. They want to educate hiring managers. They want to improve that quality whatsoever, because they would have direct contact with them. Just like what you were mentioning, that you would skip the recruitment team, you would be dealing with the hiring manager directly. This is exactly what recruiters would be doing internally. They would go to the director, or to the senior manager of that team, build strategies, try to understand what are the best ways of doing it, and building the long-term solutions and plans. And I do understand that a lot of those kind of fall into both sides. But again, going back to the fact that recruiter internally has no possibility to choose how many recs I want to work on. And
neither do we, though, really. Like, I was the sole agency for Salesforce EMEA for 5 years. Can you imagine? Like, literally, the sole agency in EMEA. So how that came about is one of my favorite candidates, who was a contractor of mine, built a piece of software that then got acquired by Salesforce. So I was hiring for him, and then when they got acquired by Salesforce, then I became the agency on the PSL for Salesforce. You cannot get thrown a vacancy, no matter how many other vacancies you're juggling, you can't turn it away. You can't turn, you know, I get knocked off the PSL if I said, I want to hire these 7 roles, but not these 5. You can't choose, you know. So when you say, oh, you know, you decide how many placements, that's not really actually how it works. It would be nice if it could work like that. If you decide how many recs or whatever it is, you know, vacancies, I think in your speak, we have very different terminology is another thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so vacancies, we can't really discern how many vacancies we are or we aren't going to get. The only thing we can do is decide how many clients that we work with. And we get referrals all the time. We have to turn a lot of business away because and that's a good position to be in, because it means that we hire for companies that we find really engaging, that we feel are really going to thrive. I mean, I hired the team for Skype when Skype came to the UK first. It's like 100 years ago, but you know. But I was like, this company are going to do really, really well. And then we hired for them right up until they got acquired by Microsoft, and then Microsoft had their own PSL. Yeah. But, you know, so what happens is you hire for these companies and then they scale, or in the case Salesforce, they're already huge. And you can't really turn it away, you know, so you suddenly have to be like, and this is where this kind of thing about this assumption again about, oh, agencies can't multitask. Well, you really have to, you know, and I might have a .NET client here and a Python client over there, and you know, and then I'm hiring sort of front end developers and designers for someone else, and it's all contract and permanent, and none of it is a given. You have to, and all of it you only do. And I mentioned this on that chat on Hung Lee's Brain Food, and I said, but what about when and they're saying you're not hiring teams and it's all about just sending CVs, and I'm like, look, I hired a team of 40 people with about 45 CVs, and I'm really proud of that work. And this was like about 3 years ago, 4 years ago maybe, that I started working for them, and most of those people are still there, you know. So again, I just feel like, and I think the big difference here is again making an assumption that we're talking about an agency recruiter who is working for one of the 90% who, like, you, to use your word, crap. Whereas I'm talking about like someone who, like, you know, like Debi, who's amazing at what she does and has a lot of integrity. I mean, I've never heard another agency say what Debi just said about the refund periods, for example, and having that integrity, knowing it's your reputation and caring about your own reputation, caring about the client's experience, caring even about the candidate's experience. It's not good for them to be in the wrong role either. So I'm talking about the 10%. And I still don't understand why any manager hiring an internal recruiter would turn away someone like myself or Debi or someone who works for 10%, who's really been there and done it for over 20 years. I still believe it's much harder. And I'm not saying that because I'm like desperate for a job and want some to hire me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it because I really believe it's true. And I haven't heard anything today to change my mind.
Well, I'm hoping. Yeah. I was just going to say, I can't believe how quickly we did it, but we're over time. But I have to say, I think that this is how we do it. We start talking.
Yeah.
Start hearing about what we're actually doing and building some empathy. And Glenn, I'm going to close with this because Glenn, this is brilliant. Maybe instead of asking which is harder, we ask, how can we make it easier for both and in-house to partner together?
Yeah.
Better question, Glenn. And Leigh, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights and perspective today. We didn't solve it. We didn't answer the question, but hopefully.
Yeah, but I think it's a wonderful note to leave on. Let's try and talk to each other and engage with each other and learn from each other. Yeah, I think that's and also figure out a way of working maybe more harmoniously. And it's such a great topic. And thanks very much for having me. And yeah, it was really enjoyable.
And Leigh, as you said, it should be about partnership. And it's not about what is harder. It's about where you can be more, where can you do more as an employee, you know, whether that's agency or in-house, because you will have different people who will be drawn to different things. And that's important to understand your internal motivation, why you want to be in-house or agency, and then take it from there.
very different, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is very different.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great week. And
Bye.
next week on Working Lens. Take care.
Bye.